Thank you very much for joining us today for our roundtable discussion on Palestinian posters, and it's part of our exhibition, The Art of the Palestinian Poster. Today's roundtable discussion, is really we're going to talk about the importance of Palestinian posters, particularly at this time during the war on Gaza. But also, I'm very interested in the idea of art as resistance and posters as a very important art form in the struggle for Palestine. We have four very important speakers with us this evening. The first I'd like to introduce is the artist Vera Tamari. Tamari is recognized as one of Palestine's leading artists. Born in Jerusalem in 1945, she's a founding member of the influential Al-Wasti Art Center in Jerusalem, and she's been part of radical art collaborations that provided the basis for Palestinian modern art, including and as well as the New Visions Art Group. She's a member of the League of Palestinian Artists and the Khalil Sakakini Cultural Center. Vera lectured on art at Birzeit University, where she founded the Virtual Gallery, and she's also had numerous solo and group shows in Ramallah and Jerusalem and internationally all over the world. Also, we are being joined by Aline Batarseh, and Aline is Palestinian from Jerusalem and is the executive director of the collective Visualizing Palestine. She has more than 20 years of experience working with several Palestinian and international nonprofits focused on advancing gender equality, reproductive justice, children's rights, mental health, social justice, and collective liberation. She is the co-author of Visualizing Palestine, a chronicle of colonialism and the struggle for liberation that Haymarket Books published last year. Dina Matar, it comes from the Center of Global Media and Communications at SOAS, the School of Oriental and African Studies. She works on the relationship between culture, communication, and politics in the Middle East, with a special focus on Palestine, Lebanon, and Syria. Prior to joining academia, she was a foreign correspondent for Reuters in the Middle East and an editor, analyst with a number of news agencies in Hong Kong, Europe, and the US. Her latest co-edited anthology is this book, Producing Palestine, the creative production of Palestine through contemporary media. And that came out last year on Bloomsbury IB Taurus. And then our fourth speaker is Nadine Aranki, who is a Palestinian curator, cultural worker, coordinator, facilitator, and content producer based in London. She was a research fellow at the De Montfort University of Leicester, focusing on cultural heritage, community needs, and cultural policies. Nadine has worked in the fields of culture, human rights, and education in Palestine and the UK. She co-curated The Many Lives of Gaza, a 2024 touring exhibition that has been shown in London, Birmingham, and Norwich. And she has written about Palestinian political posters for the Marquez Review, and her essay appears in our co-edited anthology, Samud, A New Palestinian Reader. So everyone, thank you very much for joining us today. My name's Malu Halasa. I'm the literary editor of the Marquez Review, and also I'm the curator of this exhibition that many people have helped on, showing Palestinian posters and Lebanese and Iraqi posters that were first shown in Dubai and Ramallah, and also the posters of protest stencil, which were hacked into bus shelters, and around the corner, not out of sight, but within the heart of the exhibition, are the posters of Visualizing Palestine. And if you've seen any of the animations that are dotted around the exhibition, that also came from Visualizing Palestine. Vera, can you talk to us about the importance of the Palestinian poster, particularly at this time? Is it for art, or really it's for campaigning and raising consciousness?
Yes. Maybe thank you very much, Malu, for inviting me, and I'm very happy to be with you in London at the gallery where the poster exhibition is taking place. And I want to thank you for inviting me to participate in this roundtable, and thank everybody around, the people I don't know, Aline and Dina Matar, and who else? Nadine Aranki. Yes. Anyway, it's lovely to be with you all. I would like to start talking about the emergence of the Palestinian poster, if I could, unless somebody else would talk about it.
No, please do it.
In the early 1970s, the art movement in Palestine took momentum, and a lot of young people who were coming back from colleges in the Arab world, from university art schools and academies, came back, and they founded the League of Palestinian Artists. And from there, it was all voluntary work. Everybody wanted to put effort to raise the issue of liberation and the end of occupation through the visuals, through the imagery. So a lot of us started doing exhibitions, which were really very primitive, very basic exhibitions, but beautiful exhibitions, because the spirit behind them was so true and very much related to what was going on in Palestine. And all these young people who had come back from colleges had different experiences and different arts styles and different approaches to art. But in the end, we started doing exhibitions, and these exhibitions were so popular, although in Palestine, as most people know, we didn't have then any galleries or any museums or any halls. So we started exhibiting in in municipality halls and in schools and wherever there was a big enough hall to exhibit in. And the reception was amazing. I mean, people came from all walks of life. They were thirsty to see the visual of what they felt about wanting to end the occupation through images and paintings. It is from then, I mean, there wasn't this very active market for selling art as it is now, but people could not, I mean, the artists would do one painting and maybe not sell it, but we started thinking of doing posters out of those paintings. Basically, I was talking about the people who were working as painters and not, so the painters started doing copies of their paintings so that they can distribute them and have them be accessed by people who couldn't afford to buy a painting. So in that sense, there was a lot of popularity for those images which were copied, those artworks which were copied and were kept in homes. A very famous one is the Sliman Mansour's camel of burden, holding the Jerusalem on his back, became so popular. It was in every people's home, and at the same time, this also coincided with what the PLO was doing in the 60s, earlier in Beirut. And in Beirut, there was a very active art movement for the promotion of the Palestinian issue and to spread the idea of solidarity with Palestine through these posters. So you have a lot of young Palestinian and Arab artists, all very actively working and doing and designing posters for the PLO and for the movement, the political movement.
So are you saying that the impetus to start posters really was it was so that the artwork, the imagery could be disseminated, but also that it was a way of raising consciousness for solidarity,
national identity, a dissemination of information, solidarity basically amongst people, and it's coincided with the movement which was started in the 60s with the non-aligned movement and with the liberation movements like in Latin America and Cuba and Chile. And there was so many movements of artists doing posters for the liberation movements. And they started doing, those artists, same artists started doing works, posters for Palestine. It wasn't only the Palestinian artists who were doing the poster, it was internationally, it has become an international concern, and lots of people who were from the socialist background countries started doing posters for Palestine. Now these posters, I would like to refer to a huge collection of posters which was done by Dan Walsh, an American, and he has a huge archive of posters, one of the largest archives of posters ever. It is online, I think one can access it online, and it's called the Palestine Poster Project, and it includes thousands and thousands of posters, all related to Palestine, or related to even some Israeli posters at the time of the emergence of the Israeli state, to show the historical background and relevancy of those posters. It's an amazing collection. Now, this exhibition came in the aftermath of the Gaza war. I mean, a lot of artists felt like they couldn't do any artwork in the same line as they do. I mean, because nothing would express the sorrow or the sadness or the situation. I mean, a painter felt like he's handicapped. We couldn't express ourselves in a proper way. So the idea came to the Zawi Gallery to do posters instead, posters for the promotion, first for the promotion of knowledge about what's happening in Gaza. Secondly, for also fundraising for the artists in Gaza through the Red Crescent Society.
And that's the work that we're showing in this gallery now, is that originally the posters that you're seeing on the walls in this room and downstairs, they came from that original show that the Zawiya Gallery did in Dubai and Ramallah. We just expanded it and added more posters from the artists who had made additional posters so that we could just expand the show a little bit more. And that the same here is that on the labels for the posters, there's a QR code that you can buy a copy of the poster, and the proceeds go to the Palestine Red Crescent Society, because that's something that we wanted to join in as part of a solidarity of not only that people could buy the posters, but they could be doing something good with with the poster that they're purchasing.
So this poster exhibition, in fact, became very popular. I know that has been shown in Japan as well and other places. So it's very important. I mean, it's very important, especially that it's supported by so much solidarity movement in the whole of the world for against what's happening in Gaza, and so having such an exhibition is very pertinent and meaningful at this time to have it in places like London and Tokyo and other places.
It's very meaningful at this time. I wanted to ask Dina to talk about, she has an essay in Producing Palestine, where she's talking about recentering Palestine and Palestinians in poster art. And I was wondering if you could talk about that in regards to posters.
Yes, thank you very much for inviting me. First of all, I hope that Vera and
Aline, can you hear?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. They can hear me, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. So I would like to expand on what Vera said. I grew up in the 1970s with the PLO and the Palestinian National Movement, and liberation of Palestine, and posters were everywhere. They would be posted on walls, they would be posted on electricity, kind of poles and so on. And, you know, we kind of ignored them. And I think in terms of people researching or writing about Palestine and about Palestinian art, they normally, until very recently, they ignored poster art as being, you know, very kind of common. It's not artistic. It's not really as special as other art. So there has been very little research on it. I was doing some research on the PLO media production and the production of film and the you know, production of newspapers in the 1960s and 1970s, and doing archival research. And I was fascinated by the number of posters that appeared not only on the cover of the main magazines like Palestinian and you know, other newspapers, Palestine in particular, which was the kind of the mainstream newspaper of the Palestine Liberation Organization. And I began to be interested about what it all means, you know, what is the poster trying to do? And of course, if we look at the history of posters, generally speaking, they have been discussed as part of, you know, propaganda. They have been discussed, for example, in terms of what is the role of posters in, let us say, First World War, Second World War. The Zionists have used posters very effectively to try and claim that the land is theirs. And we have very famous posters that are also included in the website that Dan Walsh put together. So I was interested in that as part of what I research, which is what I call the political communications strategies of non-state actors. And the PLO, of course, was at that time a national movement. As we come into the, you know, as we came into the 21st century, so I did some work on that, and, you know, I wrote an academic paper around that. But as we came into the 21st century, and particularly around the Israel's genocide against Gaza, and the kind of the production of posters. I mean, you could see them. I mean, you could think about the placards that people carry when you go to a protest, solidarity movements, what they carry. But there is something really significant about posters that I call recenter Palestine in the imagination. Palestine, not only a Palestinian issue, but a global issue. It's an anti-colonial issue. And it's probably the most relevant and important and most urgent anti-colonial issue of the 21st century, and has been in the 20th century as well. So I look at that and I consider the way that, you know, the articulation, the agency, the artistic production of different posters. How do they use the kufiya? How does it come across? How the kufiya becomes the flag or a symbol of what Palestine is. How the watermelon has become such a great symbol. And other things. And these posters somehow, they do not really, they do not only talk about the actual artifacts that people have carried with them to exile, like the keys or the, you know, pictures or whatever they could carry with them when they were dispossessed in the Nakba. But these posters are more about, you know, I would say a connection to the land, but also connection to what Palestine is. So in a sense, bringing Palestine into our vision, particularly in a context where Israel keeps obscuring Palestine from the global vision in different ways. And we know about Israel's and the Zionist project's propaganda policy. So I was looking at it that way.
So are you saying that the poster art made by Palestinians and by people who are supporting Palestine, it's a way of claiming back a wide range of imagery and ideas about Palestine that was obscured by war, by violence, by rhetoric, by other actors who were coming from a colonizing viewpoint?
Yeah, I think it's partly that, but partly what Vera said as well, which is, it's again about, kind of mobilizing people around what it means to be Palestinian. What is a Palestinian? What does it mean to be Palestinian in the current context? And this is an area that I have written about and I'm very interested in. And it's not only about, kind of reclaiming. It's about existential issues. What does it mean? We keep talking about it all the time. And, I can see some Palestinian faces and people in the audience. But it is what it means to be Palestinian is different than what it means to be European. It's because you have an unresolved issue that is not only not only about your rights, not only about the land, it's also about who you are, how do you claim your humanity? And this is why, kind of you have to look at poster art as also bringing together people around what it means to be Palestinian, a Palestinian identity. It kind of, it brings up these emotions. I think the artists here and the producers here would talk about it in much more elegant ways than I do. But it is really important to think of, okay, what does it evoke? What does it mean? Poster art is very, you could see it's very ubiquitous, it's very easy to use. Now when we have social media and all these platforms, it is easily circulated and it is reproduced in different ways. So you have the flag or the watermelon appearing in different ways and even coming out in material forms, whether in dresses or, T-shirts or whatever. So what I'm saying here is that poster art does have a function at this particular tragic juncture of Palestinian history. It has a function of keeping Palestine, and of course Gaza is Palestine, in the present, and meaning by that keeping it in our presence, in our vision. We are, we are seeing different ways of talking about this presence, re-presencing. It's a very academic language, but it's a kind of important to begin to think about it. And of course, it is evocative. It's got the aesthetic here is not just to see how it is, how does it look from an artistic perspective? How does it move you? What does it tell you? What does it make you think about? And for us Palestinians, it makes us think about many things. And we remember, homes, parents, we remember our, the places that we cannot go to. But it also makes us also remember that there is something that is called Palestine that is always calling you. I hope I answered that.
No, you answered that. I want to go to Nadine, but I want to go to Aline first, if that's okay. Aline is part of a long-running collective called Visualizing Palestine. And I think that Visualizing Palestine was started in 2013 or 2012. And that if you look at Visualizing Palestine posters, there's a very particular aesthetic involved that they're trying to visualize what could be potentially very complex ideas. Now, Visualizing Palestine has a wealth of material that's available online. But what I wanted to do for this particular exhibition is that after people, hearts and minds were opened by aesthetics and art, that you turn the corner and then suddenly it's boom, 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 it's Visualizing Palestine. And the posters are talking about the diminishing civil rights and liberties of Palestinians. And I want to know more about how this ethos of Visualizing Palestine came about, and how does Visualizing Palestine promote this idea in a world that's increasingly visual, and in a world where a lot of fact is perceived as false. So I'm very curious about this. Aline, if you can speak about that, please.
Yes, of course. Thank you so much, Malu. And it is just such an honor to be here. I have to say, Vera, I've followed your work over the years, but never actually got the chance to interact with you. So it's such an honor to be in this space with you, and also with you, Dima and Nadine, even though I can't see you. Thank you so much for having us in this space, Malu, and for your patience with us. And thank you, everyone, for making it to this discussion. Malu, you were correct in that VP started in 2012. And it's very interesting that we were included in the Palestinian poster project because I think traditionally never thought of our work as posters or as art, but have come over the years to embrace it as a form of art. And I'll say that initially when the initiative started in 2012, it was the co-founders really wanted to make use of something very new at that time, which was the use of infographics to influence social change, right? And it was a very novel idea at the time. Right now, 12, 13 years later, infographics are more widely used, but VP does have a very specific style to the work that we do. We look at ourselves as very much both a research organization and a visual communications organization. And we do have our information designers have all very specific styles. Like sometimes you would look at our work and you'll know if you know the team well, or if you know the collaborators well, you'll know whose art it is that is reflected in the work that we do. So part of why VP came about also in 2013 or in 2012 was because, Palestine is a very well-researched context. There are always UN reports. There are always Palestinian human rights organizations that are recording what's happening in Palestine on a daily basis. There are journalists. We also have citizen journalists like we see in Gaza today who are doing amazing work in documenting the ongoing oppression and the genocide in Palestine. And this has been historically the case, right? We've had Palestinian activism has been very core to who we are as individuals, as people who are working in culture, in art, in our daily lives, because it affects each and every one of us to the core, right? And that's why you see so much of this art is a reflection of our world, and our world is political, and our life is political. And even those who want to depoliticize this kind of environment, it's a failure, right? Because at the end of the day, you cannot divorce politics from our daily lives. And so at the time, one of the ideas was, okay, we have so much data. Many people don't read, long reports, UN reports that are hundreds of pages, or even World Bank reports, which, they have their issues to them because they're also very colonial. But many people don't read these reports. And so the co-founders, Ramzi Jaber and Juman Al-Jabri, wanted to bring this data to life in a different way through infographics. And so that's how we started the work that we're doing. And it has grown exponentially since then. As you mentioned, Malu, we have more than 300 visuals that are available for people to use. And a very important aspect of the work is that it is accessible, fully accessible for people. And this is the whole idea for us. It's so important. It's so core to our work. We have Creative Commons licensing, which means that people can download our visuals. They can print them, as you've done, Malu, to use in exhibitions or in protests, or to even do advocacy, right? A lot of people take those posters and they do advocacy with EU representatives, with sometimes they take the officials to court through the visual storytelling material that we have. So the whole idea is that we want this data to be accessible for visual learners. It is a tool for change. It is a tool for awareness raising. It is also a tool for people to feel empowered to take action, because some people also don't have the necessary information to take action. And then if people want to learn more about the data that's behind the visuals that we produce and want to do additional research or share additional information, they always have access to the data source that we use. For each and every visual has a data source that people can access through our website. And this is why I said we're very much both a research and a visual communications organization, because these aspects are important and go hand in hand for us. I think I answered part of your question, Malu, and not the whole. So,
but for example, for the poster that we have in the exhibition is about bus travel in the West Bank, and in an area that's half the size of Northern Ireland, there are 2 bus lines that Palestinians can ride on. As an American growing up, I was born in the mid-50s, and what I saw of American civil rights, the movement, and knowing racial relationships in America, 2 bus lines, and the way that African Americans were not even allowed to ride on buses, and Palestinians are not allowed to ride on buses, that seemed to me a fact that is something that needs to be wider spread. Or the way that water is used in the West Bank. You know, the aquifer that Israel is drinking is underneath the feet of Palestinians, and Palestinians don't have access as much to that water as the Israelis. Again, that's what I feel, that there are certain facts, or by looking at these posters, suddenly you come into another kind of understanding. And I just want to relate something that happened during the launch of the exhibition, is that, I was moving around the gallery. People, of course, were enthralled by the art posters. But I came into the room after, 40 minutes after the launch, and this upper room was no one was in it. And I was thinking, where did all the people go? And I turned the corner, and the corridor that had Visualizing Palestine, everybody was there. They were packed into that corridor reading, and people could not believe the facts that they were reading. And it just made me think that somehow our knowledge about Palestine is truncated. First, people don't know that there's a very vital art movement in Palestine. But second, they don't know the facts of what daily life is like in the West Bank or in Gaza. And I find that for someone like me who've been trying to write all the time about Palestine or Palestinian lives, or to make a platform for Palestinian voices, I still find it interesting that people don't know. And I guess I'm going to bring the discussion to Nadine Aranki, our young West Bank curator. In curating for here, for Britain, were you surprised by how little people knew or what they knew? And also, can you talk about your own inspirations, like the first poster that you saw when you were growing up that made an impact on you?
Thank you, Malu, for the invitation, and for everyone for being here in the lovely panel. It's amazing to be surrounded by lovely women. Men speak too much, take too much space. The thing about poster art, I think for me, when I was doing the exhibition with my co-curator, Meg Peterson, The Many Lives of Gaza was an exhibition made for UK audience, and poster art was one of the ways, the quick ways, to support the archival material with current information. And that was when I really went onto Visualizing Palestine, their website, and it was really difficult to choose posters or like infographics from there, but it helped me produce that kind of exhibition in a very short time, because me and Meg were producing the exhibition over the span of 2 months. So when the genocide started in October, we started talking. In November, we started the research and the work, and it was on in the first week of January 2024. So that shows how much poster art, infographics, and archival material is really a quick vehicle for education and advocacy, because at the end of the day, we didn't want the exhibition to become just a lovely space where you see nice photography and you enjoy it, And it was important because it had lovely photography from Palestinian and international photographers showing daily life of Palestinians, and so beautiful, like looking at life in refugee camps in Gaza. But then I thought, like, how do we, glue these dots or connect these dots? So that's when I decided to go on the Visualizing Palestine website and bring a few posters about current information. And we did a few versions of the exhibition. And I went again to see the new posters, what kind of information, current information about the genocide is there, to update it, so to keep it really fresh. And yeah, I have to say I came across also Visualizing Palestine when I was a researcher in London back in 2017, 2018. I was working with an amazing organization called McCann Rights, and I did kind of try to curate some visual section for the website, and that's when I delved into the world of, different materials, including VP, including many films that were available online, but also a lot of human rights organizations in Palestine had that.
I want to interrupt Nadine, because in our book Samud, when I saw Nadine's exhibition with Meg Patterson, that made me start thinking that we needed a poster exhibition, a wider poster exhibition. But with her essay in our book Samud and for the Marquez Review, she was the one who really turned me on to these younger initiatives like Artists Against Apartheid. Can you talk about those young initiatives on the internet?
Yeah, I actually was thinking when you asked me these questions, the young artists, what is your favorite poster? I started thinking about the poster as this historical document, because it really does document our history in a way, the changes and what's happening. And I grew up in a very grim era after the Oslo Accords, and the poster has declined as an art of showing how the Palestinian struggle is doing. Although a lot of the artists still did poster art. And I think when Malu asked me to write for Marquez Review about the poster art, I was thinking, okay, I'm gonna do some searching online, and I came across many different young people, Palestinian artists that I know, that I came across. Many of the artists in this room, the younger generation, I actually worked with. So, or we went to similar, we went to cultural organizations together. But then I saw that they are taking initiative at the time when Palestinian content was censored, and it is censored in this country as well. So yeah, so this is something not only happening in the media, but also in exhibition spaces, which are mainly educational spaces. So I came across Art Commune, and I saw many of my friends and co-workers just having this beautiful, it's like a Google Drive document, and they put their posters, their visuals they created after the genocide, and they had a call to people from around the world to actually put their work for free access so they can educate about Palestine. So it was open for Palestinians and internationals to contribute. And then I started also looking at other collectives around the world, because Dina said, this has become an international movement, and with posters we have other than Welsh's the Palestine poster project, which was older than before the genocide. We have other collectives around the world, Artists Against Apartheid, and I spent hours looking at their posters, and I can recognize them now in protests, because I've seen this, and I know I know they're also available for public use. So I encourage you to check these collectives out. You can print the information, you can display them in exhibitions, and you know,
Or carry them on protests.
or yes, you can protest. So yeah,
There was one poster by, we have an artist downstairs, Victoria Garcia. She's Hispanic, and she's a social activist in Georgia in the United States. And I recognized her poster on, I don't know if you know Laura Albis she was an editor at the studies of the Institute of Palestinian Studies. And I said, hey, you've got Victoria Garcia's poster on your notebook that you've taken on a demonstration, because she had photographed on Instagram. She said, what poster are you talking about? And it's almost as if these posters are so ubiquitous that the people carrying them, they don't know where they come from. And one of the things I wanted to do in this exhibition was to honor your connection to the younger generation, but to bring up their names and who they are and their background.
yeah.
Because of that international, not only Palestinian, but international connection.
Yeah, it definitely shows how certain times in our history bring up this movement, and you can see it through the arts. And what's interesting also about knowing the artist, a lot of the posters on the Palestine Project archive, they don't really have a specific name, especially from the era of the 60s and the 70s, and yeah, the older ones. But the new ones, obviously, like we know who the artist is. But like it shows how important it was. Like the artist wasn't investing in their own name. They were like investing in the movement, carrying on the struggle through the ways they knew. Yeah, I'm going to answer your question quickly about posters. I think I can't name an artist or a specific poster, but I grew up during the Second Intifada, and the whole poster scene, which is not always spoken about, was of martyrs who were murdered by the Israeli army. And when I used to like go around as a child, I would see pictures of people from my community. And that's like my first poster memory of like, you know, seeing all these martyrs, all these people involved in resistance, and just, you know, posters everywhere, and also like graffiti. So that era. But if I had to choose one poster which I have a connection with it, I will choose a poster which is based on a painting by the late Palestinian artist Fathi Ghaban, who sadly, I spoke about him last time we were here, but I want to always commemorate Fathi Ghaban, who's from Gaza, and he was displaced during the Nakba. And I learned when I was doing my exhibition, The Many Lives of Gaza, about one of his posters called Identity. And Identity became, as like many of his paintings became posters, it became a poster widely spread. And recently I actually found at my parents' home last summer some posters from Fathi Ghaban, but another one. So Identity is basically a scenery of Jerusalem with a man and a woman and a horse, and it's like quite a strong imagery. And I want to read what Fathi described, how he described this poster. So he said, describing Identity, pent-up heat can turn into energy, just as pent-up anger can turn into a force that can move this world. So just like a reminder of how we visualize our movement and how we want our education, our resistance to go through his words. And yeah, he said he believed that he was arrested in the 80s, shortly before the the first Intifada, the uprising, because of how widely spread Fathi Rabin's posters were. Yeah.
I want to bring it back to Vera. Are you there?
I'm there. I have to put my ear to the mic, to the iPad
Okay,
microphone.
I'm going to speak
So
down
you
to the
cannot-
computer.
You cannot see me. I'll see you briefly and then I'll.
Okay.
No, but I can hear you well.
Okay,
I don't-
good. As long as you can hear me, that's the most important thing.
Unfortunately, I couldn't hear Dina and Nadine. It wasn't clear at all.
Yeah, we have to talk.
But Aline was good. And anyway,
That's
please
fine.
ask
Anyway,
whatever.
yeah, I wanted to ask you about, one of the things that I've been talking to you lately about is, we've been talking about your installation Going for a Ride in 2002. When the Israelis incursion into Ramallah, they drove through the town, they crushed the cars. You took these crushed cars, you made them into an installation. And the Israelis saw the installation. Well, in our book, Samud, in that book here, Samud, we have two of the pictures that Vera took of the launch of that installation of that day. It was so busy. And this was during an incursion. Israeli tanks were in Ramallah. And so they drove by the installation, the Israelis, and the tanks rolled over the installation again. And Vera was watching this from her family home that was nearby. And when the Israelis were done, they got out and they peed over the installation. And this installation is really, people have been surprised when I talk about this installation because, as I mentioned to you before earlier, is that it encapsulates a lot of ideas that one has about Palestinian art. And one is that art as resistance. And you even filmed what was going on on this installation when the Israelis came the second time around, and you made it into a documentary. Not only is it art as resistance, it's art as Black humor. It's art as showing a different side to Palestine. And I'm very interested in the idea of art as resistance, culture as resistance. And I was wondering if you could talk about that. And was that something that when you were in the New Visions group, were you and Sliman Mansour and Tayseer Barakat and Nabil Anani, were you discussing this, or was it something that just happened organically?
Well, that period of the first Intifada was very, very interesting because it was second Intifada. Sorry, it was during my Going for a Ride was during the second Intifada, and I would like to talk a little more about it and explain how it came through. It was a very, very harsh period for all of us because there was a lot of confrontations between the young men and the army. A lot of martyrs fell. Places were destroyed, but mainly the army wanted to hurt not only the people who were militant, they wanted to hurt the people at large. And they chose to hurt them in the most personal ways. Like if you have a car on the street, they could easily go with a tank over the car and crush it. A car that symbolizes freedom of movement or status or whatever it is for a person who has a car, they wanted to hurt that person and tell him, we're there, we can do anything with you. They would drive even through in the driveways of people's homes and crush the cars there. They drove over ambulances. Malu was telling me that the scenes in Gaza of crushing ambulances, we saw that before, and it's like a systematic thing that they do to destroy private property as much as they want to destroy public property. So I chose the location of that installation was very important. It was in the football field of the French Boys School, which was across the street from my house, conveniently. But more than that, I wanted to put the installation in an area where the settlement, which was overlooking the playfield, Psagot, the settlers could actually participate and look at it, see the installation and wonder why this piece and question it. Because in Haaretz, I mean, during the incursions in Ramallah, there were about 700 cars in Ramallah alone that had been crushed. Not one, not two, 700 cars, private, official, ambulances, whatever was in their way, they crushed. So in Haaretz, they said, how come when the curfew was over and things were, how come there are cars on the road again? We thought we had crushed them all. So it means that it was like a systematic thing they wanted to do. And I meant to have the settlers up on top of the hill, looking down into the playfield to see that installation. Unfortunately, it didn't last very long because the army, as Malu said, they came the next day and recrushed the cars in situ, wherever where the installation was. It was a very big project for me, but what was very nice is the assistance of everybody. Everybody believed that things like this should be done, like the municipality, the public affairs office, students, volunteers, workers who did the tarmac, the playfield. They all worked for it. It was a very beautiful experience working together to create this installation. Now, resistance art, during the time the League of Palestinian Artists was in full movement and activity, the art that was produced was purely political art. It wasn't art that would please the layman for just enjoying art for art's sake. Like, you couldn't draw a painting do a painting or a drawing of a landscape or a still life composition. There had to be a theme that echoed the political situations. That's why a lot of artists started using symbols to represent the occupation or the freedom from the occupation, like the dove was a very popular symbol, the rooted tree was a very popular symbol, the olive tree, the woman wearing the Palestinian dress, embroidered dress, became a very, very important symbol in the art of that period. So, and you couldn't do any art that was not called committed art. Everybody started doing the same, using the same themes and the same things in different ways, but it was like dictated. We had to do this. At one point, my colleagues Sliman Mansour, Tayseer Barakat, and myself, and Nabil Anani, we felt like we were sort of exhausted creating the same symbols, the same themes, working on the same themes. Although it was a very important period when we did those artworks and along these themes, it was very important to do. But we felt we have exhausted ourselves and we needed to find something new. We felt like we have matured in our professions as artists and we need to find our ways in different modes. So we agreed to do a collective, and this collective included the four of us. The three artists, Sliman, Tayseer, and Nabil, they mainly had decided to do this collective to start using new materials that are not materials that they have to buy from Israeli markets. So they started using materials from natural materials like henna and dyes and leather and wood and mud, things like that, instead of using the paints, oil paints and canvases which were bought from the Israeli market. At that time there was a boycott call for to boycott Israeli goods. So that was one way of showing it. I myself, frankly, to tell you the truth, I wasn't aware that my colleagues had decided to do that, to do the collective because of the boycott. I felt we needed to jump artistically a step ahead of what we were doing before and explore new areas, new experiences. And I continued working in clay, but I changed the theme of my work. Instead of working on the Palestinian village that I did a lot of work on before, women in Palestine and the landscape in Palestine, I started looking at my family's history. And because as Palestinians, as my parents were in El Bire, Ramallah, before 1948, so they didn't immigrate, they didn't have to immigrate and become refugees. So we have a huge collection of photographs from the time they lived in Jaffa and Jerusalem. And so it was a beautiful record. And I started doing relief works inspired by those family photographs, which was became very meaningful for me. And I thought meaningful also for other people to know about, because it reflected the social life of the Palestinians in the cities and not in the villages this time. And
if I could stop you there, I'll always remember I was talking to Raja Shahade after a literary event that he had given, and we had talked about the invisibility of the Palestinian family. So to even show the Palestinian family, whichever way you're showing them, whether it's photographs or in the reliefs that Vera Tamari has been doing, it's quite radical because the Palestinian family is invisible. You see the Palestinian young male or the masked man. Every now and then you see a woman in traditional dress, but the family is invisible. And that's what's great about the poster exhibition, is that you have images of allegorical images of the family, but the family is present. So I just wanted to insert that.
Malu, would you allow me to show a picture of what I meant of this? Because I made a book recently, 2 years ago, called Returning, and it's inspired by those relief works which I did, inspired by family. Can you see them?
Yes, yes.
So this is a relief work in clay, which is my medium, and this is the photograph.
Family photo. Fantastic. Absolutely.
So I made a book of stories of the people who are in the pictures. I chose around 10 plaques, 10 panels that I had done, and I made stories about them. So you have the visuals, you have the original photograph, you have my artwork, and then the stories that go around the artwork. So again, I mean, resistance art is also trying to bring back the memory of what was before and bring it to life again through things like that. I think this is also, I would consider this as a resistance art. It's not only the gun and the symbols, the political symbols, it's also the daily beauties of life around the landscape of Palestine. If I work a lot with olive trees, and I made a huge installation recently at the Palestinian Museum, a huge wall of around 3,600 olive trees in clay. So that again is showing because I wanted to symbolically, for every tree that has been uprooted, I would do a tree in clay. And so that's how the project evolved. But resistance art is in our, I mean, everything we do is resistance while we're here, while we're living here. So the art is a reflection of the times. And what I want to say is that if I want to mention the exhibition at the Palestinian Museum at the moment, it's called This is not an exhibition, and it is an exhibition for works of Gaza artists. It was curated remotely by the Gaza artists, who suggested that we collect paintings by Gaza artists that are available in the West Bank with collectors. And the exhibition is one of the most moving exhibitions because all the artists in Gaza have lost all all their works. They have lost their ateliers. They have lost their archives, everything. So the only thing that they could have as a material evidence of what they did were the paintings which were in people's home in the West Bank. And the museum collected in collaboration with those artists, collected around 360 paintings and made a beautiful exhibition with them. And the whole atmosphere was very moving, knowing that these are the remnants of what these artists did. And in Gaza, there was a huge movement of art. I mean, up till now, they still have a desire to produce and work and exhibit and show their work, despite yeah.
You know, Aline, I wanted to ask you about, we were talking about art as resistance, and we'll continue that discussion. But in terms of visualizing Palestine, storytelling as resistance, because I'm thinking of the animations that we have in the exhibition. The one downstairs, I'm sorry, I'm not, there are two downstairs in the corner. One is So Far Away, the 5 testimonies of couples and how they're living. And also facing that are the questions that that Gazan children have been asking when they go into a trauma center. And I found that it's one thing to talk about the infographics and the artistry of the infographics, but the storytelling of the animations, the ones where, and also we open the exhibition with quotes from people in Gaza against this very muted background of bombing. And I kind of felt that it was important for the exhibition to have the words of Gazans as people enter into the exhibition. And downstairs, I thought it was important that people understood that people who marry, I mean, can you talk about these various animated slideshows, animations that visualizing Palestine is making?
Yes, absolutely. And, you know, as Vera was talking, I feel like everything about our existence is about resistance, right? I mean, as Palestinians, we always say our existence is resistance. And then I was also, as Vera was talking, I was reminded of this quote by Mahmoud Darwish that says, every beautiful poem is an art of resistance. And I think that is correct to everything that is you know, art and documentation, and a lot of the work that we do, obviously, Malu, is art and documentation together. And because Israel is aiming to destroy and dispossess us not only from our land but also of our stories, this process of documentation and visualizing or making art of our daily stories is just so important. And also, you mentioned something earlier during this conversation, which was that, you know, there are so many details of the structural violence and colonial violence that Palestinians face that even Palestinians aren't aware of. You know, I mean, even with our co-founders, I remember the story that he kept. One of the co-founders was Palestinian from Ramallah, but was born in Jerusalem, who said, you know, I used to travel to Palestine every year and then realized later on some of those structural violence, you know, issues that I wasn't aware of, even as a Palestinian. So why are we expecting sort of, you know, in the international community to know some of those details if we ourselves don't know those details? So the short animations that you were talking about, Malu, are called So Close Yet So Far,
Yeah.
and it is a reflection of several true stories of Palestinian families who have been separated, either because they have Palestinian ID or Jerusalem ID and have not been able to live together or have been forced to live separately due to checkpoints, the separation wall, and the ID system, which is a hierarchical system that has been imposed on us as Palestinians and has been used to fragment us as a people as well. So that has many implications, both in terms of the types of experiences that we have, like obviously the reality in Jerusalem is different than the reality of the West Bank, than the reality in Gaza. And so that is also used to both for us to talk about those experiences as fragmented experiences, but also to separate us from each other as a people. So then it's difficult for us to resist together this colonial structure and this colonial oppression. And many of us in the movement are very aware of this and are resisting it, on a daily basis with the work that we're doing. So we're also resisting this forced fragmentation that Israel has imposed on us. And I think it was Dina who said that, Gaza is Palestine, right? At the end of the day, we all very much deeply feel what's happening in Gaza, affects all of us, and we have a responsibility to stop this genocide and to stop also the ethnic cleansing that's happening across the West Bank and Jerusalem. So the two the visuals, the illustrations that you referred to on questions from Palestinian children in Gaza, I don't know if everyone knows which ones you're talking about. Is it possible for me to share my screen so people can see? Oh, I can't. It's disabled. Are you able to enable it by any chance?
I'm not in charge. If Megan can enable it, then
Okay.
But I can say that the second poster is around the corner. We have an actual poster of the series, but downstairs we show the entire series of the questions that children are asking, with the graphic of the child, whether it's a child like in a house or, the graphic of the child, and then paired with the statistic, just like the series that you show online. So we are showing that.
Can you?
Yeah, now we can. Yes, here we are.
Excellent. So this visualization was very special to us because usually what we do, most of our work is very data focused, right? But also a lot of what we try to do in the work is also to bring in Palestinian stories, so that people can actually connect and understand what's happening on the ground. So those questions from Palestinian children, the first one that we visualized was, when I die, will they put me in a grave with my mom and dad? And we wanted to have the Arabic version and the English version because the questions were obviously asked in Arabic. And it was documented by the Palestine Trauma Center. And we worked with the Palestinian Global Mental Health Network to make those available, as well as the No Child a Target campaign. So a lot of the work that we do, you'll see that we're also collaborating with Palestinians, with Palestinian organizations, with movement actors. We're amplifying their messages. We're amplifying campaign asks as well, because we know that also, and especially in Gaza, with almost half the population being children, that it's mostly children that are disproportionately being impacted by the genocide. And this is also by design, right? Israel wants to eliminate every single Palestinian in Gaza, and they've made that intent very clear. So we've reflected those questions and visuals, and then with data points, as you said, Malu. So this other part of that question that the child is asking, has this data point on 19,000 plus children in Gaza have been orphaned by the Israeli genocide. The next one, which I think is the one that you've printed and that you've used in is, why is this boy's face covered and why is there blood, right? And then we have added the data point that we added here was Israeli forces killed at least 17,000 Palestinian children, and more than 20,000 children are missing. We are actually very well aware that the numbers might be much, much, much higher than this. This is only the data that we have accessible, and we make those clear in a lot of when we release visuals, we make that clear as well, because we know that with the health infrastructure being completely destroyed in Gaza, it's really difficult to have accurate data and accurate information on the number of people killed. And then the third one, which is really very disturbing and emotional for us, was, this question from children: do children who have their legs amputated grow new legs? These are the innocent questions that children ask about their reality and about what they're seeing. And the data point that we have accompanied to this is that 4,000 children in Gaza have had a limb amputated in the last year. Again, an estimate, right? I don't know if I'll go through all of them. I'll just quickly show you some of those, and you can read, you can read the questions. Another one that's, we have 92% of housing in Gaza that's been damaged. Another one that I also really think it's important for people to see, a data point, is that 96% of children in Gaza feel that death is imminent. So just imagine the generation of children and people who are completely traumatized by the genocide in Gaza. And the visualization we have that goes along with this is this one, which is, do the dogs that eat the martyrs' bodies turn into humans? So, I invite everyone to explore the rest of those visuals. There are, quite a few in the series with the questions of children, which is
amazing, Wallah.
Thank you.
Who did the drawings, may I ask?
So the drawings is our colleague Yusra Al-Gazzar, who is based in Egypt. She's been working with visualizing Palestine for a few years now, and she's amazing. All of the information designers who work with VP are amazing, and this one was special and different than some of the things that we put out there as well.
Yeah.
No, I kind of felt that it was a chance for us to hear questions from children. We don't hear from children enough. We see them being depicted in videos. We see them crying, but we need to have an understanding to be close to them. To continue, you had something that you wanted to add.
Well, you can.
No, you.
No, I was. Can you hear me now? Vera, can you hear?
Maybe speak.
Yes, I can hear you now.
Perfect. I just wanted to comment on the kind of the comment of whether it's all about resistance, and of course it is, but it's also about knowledge production. It's about producing knowledge that will remain as archival knowledge, for the future. It's really important to think about the ways in which such material, the production of posters, the artwork, the incredible energy and creativity of Palestinians are recorded in the present, so that they have a meaning for the future, but they also have a meaning for the people involved in them. I also feel that, it's the genocide, the media has been totally awful about writing and talking about the genocide, and we all know the reasons for that. And hence this work, and the exhibition is so important. So in a sense, Palestinians have been made to be faceless, without agency, and without any kind of individuality or creativity. And lo and behold, I mean, there's so much stuff out there, the creative energy of the moment and of other moments. We should not forget that the Nakba continued from 1948. So nothing started on October the 7th. It has been ongoing for a while. We've had examples of the first Intifada, the second Intifada, Palestinians living under occupation and so on. But what I mean about knowledge production, it's also production about ourselves. How do we speak one language? How do we understand, how to deal with the world outside and so on? And so these are really important contributions. And thank you for that, both of you. And of course, Nadine here is really amazing. Thank you. That's all I want to say.
I wanted to, Nadine, yes.
Yes,
think this
can I say something or somebody is speaking?
Yeah, hopefully you can hear me, Vera. Can you hear
Yes,
me?
no, go ahead.
Yeah, so this question I feel is very big, like what is the role of art and culture in resistance? Is it like interchangeable or is it the same? It's not the same. And I feel like this, sometimes we go very hard on ourselves thinking about these questions because obviously all of us, and I'm sure the audience here do amazing work, which is about education. But most importantly for me, it's about bringing the human aspect. And because the Zionist movement has always worked on dehumanizing Palestinians. And I think by making exhibitions, we bring back the Palestinian as, you know, the human. And it shouldn't be like a matter of gazing at a human or, you know, romanticizing, but rather than remembering the creative energy that we have and we present. And yeah, so this is what I think. And I think it's like, maybe we cannot free Palestine through one exhibition, but a lot of people can learn a lot about our culture, about our stories through these movements.
I always feel for myself that I'm always starting at the beginning of the wheel yet again. Like I always meet people who, oh, I didn't know about Palestinian art, or oh, I didn't realize this about the West Bank. And it's a continual, one has to just keep going. And even if it's repetitious. But what I want to ask, the last question I want to ask everyone is, the time is so dire. How do we keep going? How do we renew our faith to keep going? How do we make sure that we're not distracted by depression and anxiety, upset? How do we continue? Vera, can we start with you?
It's a very difficult question because for 2.5 years now, we're still standing on unstable grounds. We cannot find what you call it, like stability in our careers, how to go on from now on. It's a very strange situation. But what I wanted to say before you asked this question, do you mind if I go back to
Please do.
Dina's when she said it's about knowledge production. And I totally agree with her, how art and the visuals can be important in introducing information. Especially with the contemporary art, I feel, and a lot of young people now are shifting to do art, installation art or video art or art through photography. It's a much more intelligent art than the overt, the very overt messages that come along with like slogans and stuff like that. So it's very, very important what's happening now, a shift in the art production towards something that's more analytical, question raising. People have to when they look at an artwork or an installation, they have to ask questions and they have to be part of that work. When they start asking questions, they become part of that work. So I think that is very important. And I think going back to your question, Malu, is to try as much as possible to stay put and try to enjoy the little things in our daily lives. I mean, it's very hard to do that, but if you can go out to the garden or look at the landscape and enjoy although the landscape in front of my window, there's a new settlement coming up, and which is disturbing. So that we are constantly reminded of the hardships of being under occupation and the continuous. It's really traumatic what we see, traumatic every day, and it's very hard to find stability in our lives and feel that we can live normally. But we have to stay put and live day to day and maybe try to see if we can help in any way, and especially our contacts with our colleagues in Gaza. We are very much in contact with them, trying to see how they are holding on and asking questions. I think this is very important. But otherwise, for us, the future is very bleak. We're afraid of our existence, actually. It's really very, very bad. It's not only I mean, we are living in Ramallah very normally, but deep inside, we know that one day the Israelis might be doing the same thing like they're doing in Gaza and the north of Palestine. So we try to hold on as much as possible. Really, this is what you can do. And inshallah, nothing will as drastic and as dramatic and as horrible will happen to us. We're very afraid. I mean, people are very afraid of the changes that are daily taking place here. And we just have to stay put. I mean, take courage from the courage that people of Gaza have been facing the war with. Take courage from the courage that the Nablus and Jenin and Tulkarem people have been taking. It's amazing, it's amazing. I don't know how we can do that, but maybe when the time comes, we will try to face it. Yes.
Would you like to add?
Well, I agree. I agree with you, and I think we need to continue, kind of doing whatever we can, because there is, you talked about normal and normalcy, and I Sliman Tamari in a piece talking about normalcy. There is no normalcy. The idea of normal under occupation is just a kind of doesn't exist. But the other problem is that normal can become normalization. So we don't want to have the situation become so normalized that Gaza is subjected to a genocide, people are being killed, becomes so normalized that it's almost ignored. And this is the problem, is that we cannot stop doing anything, particularly us who are living outside in the diaspora. We have to continue. We have to continue talking, producing, repeating, boring people to death with our stories. But we have to keep telling these stories. And I think there is such an importance in the storytelling and the witnessing and trying to record that at the same time. So good luck, Vera. I hope things go okay your end.
Thank God there is the internet and we can, there's still some kind of communication. I mean, thank God for the Gaza people who can still communicate with us and write to us. And this is the only salvation for them. So, but we have to continue try as much as we can and try to put inner calmness inside of us by really appreciating the small things that come every day and thinking these are the things that we should hold on to and which can carry us across another obstacle and other hard times. Yep.
Yeah, very well said. I don't know if I can say anything after that, Vera, but I wanted to say, yes, we have so much responsibility as Palestinians living abroad, but also our allies have a huge responsibility. We get tired because we get to repeat the same stories over and over, and we need you to take the mic sometimes, being mindful of how to tell the stories, and being really aware of our positions and our privilege scale as well. I think a practical note would be keeping the connections with our community, keeping that connection with each other as people who support Palestine, with our Palestinian colleagues and friends, with our families and friends in Palestine and in Gaza. The most powerful moments for me when I wrote, for example, for Al-Markaz, another piece, which was during which I interviewed people from Gaza, and I was amazed that, you know, by the amount of work they've been doing. Like, I'm doing nothing, like, you know, I'm living in London, very normal life, I'm not under bombs. And then, you know, you get to talk to people, and talking to our community and having this connection is a very good way of keeping us going. And I just want to mention on that note, a good way to connect with people from Gaza. I came across this organization or platform called Freelancers in Gaza. I interviewed this platform while I was producing this research slash very like quick mapping on heritage, culture, tourism in Palestine post the genocide. And I have a few copies if you'd like to see it. And people in Gaza are producing, are working, and yes, it is very difficult, and the internet is slow, and we shouldn't expect, or you know, we shouldn't idealize people at the end of the day, because you know we all get tired. People in Gaza get really tired. But freelancers in Gaza, many of them also became refugees in Egypt, and they struggled to make a living. And a lot of them are designers. So going back to posters and you know what they can offer. So if you have an event and you want a poster designed, go on Freelancers in Gaza on their website and contact the designers, the freelancers, and they offer other services as well. They offer services like teaching Arabic, they offer services like media services and programming, so anything that can be done remotely. And it's a very practical way, because it's a mutual benefit. So you get something, but they also feel like their livelihood is very dignified that way, and they need this source of income at this time. And yeah, they just need a lot more connections at the moment, and be patient, like send them what you want weeks in advance, because the internet will be slow where they are, so they can actually do the work for you. So I encourage you to check this out.
Definitely. That's really good advice. And Aline, can you tell us how you renew your commitment day by day?
Yeah, thank you, Mal. It's such an important question. And also thank you, Nadine, for offering some practical advice on what people can do. And I'm sure a lot of people that are joining the discussion today are doing some of these things. I think, you know, I'll say a couple of things. One, I really appreciate what Dima said around, you know, knowledge production being archival material. It's so important. We can't underestimate the importance of continued documentation. And actually in the book that we released last September, almost a year ago now, which Malu mentioned earlier. So it's the Visualizing Palestine, a Chronicle of Colonialism and the Struggle for Liberation. The dedication is for all Palestinians, past, present, and future. May these visuals one day be artifacts for free generations to remember the journey to justice. And this brings me to a very important quote that we refer to in the book by Toni Morrison, which she wrote, you know, amid the US war on Iraq years ago. And obviously, like, all of those struggles are also interconnected, which is really important to continue to reflect on. And in this piece, she said, it's titled "No Place for Self-Pity, No Room for Fear," and she talks about how she felt so helpless to write at that time on the war in Iraq. And then she says that a friend of hers reaches back out to her and says, "No, this is precisely the time when artists go to work, not when everything is fine, but in times of dread." And
This is the time. This is the time for all of us. And everyone here has done amazing work, a work that has inspired me to do the exhibition, but also at the Markaz Review, we publish Palestinian voices, and I'm always looking for material, and I'm trying to bring a wide range of people together because we need the different perspectives and viewpoints, and we have to make what's been obscured and invisible visible. And I think that's the main thing that all of us have to do now. I want to open up the discussion now for questions. Are there questions? You're going to have to come and talk into the machine. Come on up.
Thank you so much for being here. It's amazing to see other very inspiring Palestinian women, and especially in the art scene, which we lack, I think, in my opinion. We have many teachers, we have many doctors, we have many journalists. We lack artists, or maybe they lack the visibility they deserve. So my question, coming from a Palestinian journalist who's covered many of the wars in Gaza, is what is your biggest challenge as an artist in the art scene when it comes to Palestinian art, but especially in resisting occupation? So whether it's societal or the occupation itself, but what are the main challenges and how can you try to challenge these challenges? Thank you. Many challenges.
Vera, do you want to tackle that question for us?
Can you summarize it for me? Because I couldn't hear it very well.
Oh, I'm sorry. About what are the challenges for Palestinian women artists, and how is these challenges, how does one, negotiate them, and how does one get through them?
I mean, the Palestinian artists have been cornered in one way or another to only think about politics and the situation of war and incursions and occupation, rather than have the freedom to think of other things that one normally would like to express about in his daily life. I mean, if you take an artist let's take an artist in England, David Hockney. He can afford to paint landscapes very freely. He can afford to paint people swimming in a swimming pool. It's accepted by the society. Whereas here, we are always, we are burdened by the issue of having to produce art that reflects the situation, the political situation. We want to be free of that. I feel there should come a time when every person, every Palestinian needs to feel that he can carry on his daily life without the stresses of occupation, the fear, the trauma, really, it's very annoying. I mean, we cannot go anywhere, we cannot move, we cannot. I haven't been out of this area for the last six years. I could do that, but to find it very difficult, more and more, to cross the bridge and go and travel and make arrangements and get visas. It's very difficult. So we are sort of cooped in one corner, and we need to find, like I said before, to find daily pleasures and think of others as well. Think of how we can make others happy and relaxed. My communication with some Gaza artists gives me a lot of relief, because especially to know that they are still doing okay. Some of them are not, definitely. Some of them are in camps, some of them are in houses that are shattered. Some are, it's very, very sad to communicate with them, but we need to do that. And this is our challenge, I think, is to carry on. I mean, you cannot stop. I myself am very busy with Zoom talks all the time. I try to work on some projects every once in a while, but it's very difficult because we're constantly distracted by the news, and yeah. So this is how it is. I mean, it's not easy. It's not normal times, and it's very difficult. It's very difficult to pose a question like that. what are the challenges? Challenges are in our daily life as artists, as people, as human beings.
Yeah, thank you, Vera. I just wanted to add, for us who live outside Palestine, I think one of the main challenges is censorship of our content, our academic papers, our exhibitions. So not only like as artists, but also as curators and academics and etc. And I think the main thing is what this is doing is shifting the conversation from the important things. Like we do this to raise awareness, right? And then when we lose our energy trying to convince galleries to have our text with the facts that it holds about Palestine, criticizing the arms industry is like a red line. You can't say that in the UK because it's a sensitive topic, right? So we have these challenges, but I think again, how we mitigate is we use art and poetry to mitigate that. So we get our message through. You know, this is a tip, like, you know, if you are censored, write a poem about what you would like, and then like it's creative. No one is gonna be like, no, don't include this in your text, in your exhibition blurb or whatever. So yeah, just don't tell everyone this trick so we don't lose it. So
Malu, can I say something?
Yes, of course, please do.
Yeah, I agree with Nadine. That was when I wrote down my notes. That was the one thing I was going to say is the silencing of, you know, I think also this is true in Palestine, right? I mean, Israel is trying to completely destroy art and culture. And if you look at Jerusalem as a microcosm, even, they've completely destroyed all institutions. The only two institutions, well, maybe more, but like Yabus and the National Conservatory of Music are you know, continue to exist. But really, they've attacked them several times as well. So it's really difficult. That silencing is rampant, and it's in Palestine and it's outside of Palestine. And even, you know, with our work at VP, you know, we've had interviews that haven't been published, you know, by academic institutions. Especially in the academic world, we see the silencing, you know, quite rampant. And I mean, you see it with the student movement, obviously, how that was shut down. I think I will say the other challenge is resources and time. I feel like at the very beginning of the genocide, all of us as a team at VP were working 24/7. We changed the way that we do our work. We changed our process. Sometimes it takes us, you know, 1 to 3 months to produce visuals. And then at the very beginning of the genocide, it was taking us a week. We just wanted to put things out there, which also meant that some of our designers weren't happy with the final products of the work. But then we realized that we couldn't keep it up. There was a breakdown, you know, across our team because we wanted to do more, and the genocide was only getting worse and worse and worse. So I will say that that's one of the challenges, the time and the resources that we have to continue to produce and continue to encourage people to take action with the work that we produce. But I think it's also, you know, we have to lean into how much we can do, the limitations, and then also lean into our community and the wider collaborators that we have who can fill in the gaps when we can't. So I think, you know, each of us, for example, on this call has a specific skill set where we're contributing to the cause and to resisting colonization and the status quo. And I think then as well within the audience that is here today, you also have your specific skill sets. So every little thing that we do does count. It doesn't seem like it is right now because we don't see the situation changing, but it's inevitable that we will see the change when all of us continue to do our small part and our big parts, whatever that is. So I think that's what I will say from my perspective.
Also, another thing that I would add, another thing I would add is that we have to pick our battles. We have to pick our projects and pick our battles. We've got to pick the voices that we want to amplify, and we've got to be really smart. And I think that I have to say that this book is a really smart book. because this book looks at new technology, TikTok, how Palestine is being repositioned in many different areas of technology. And we should know about that and understand that. How not only that the Israelis are using technology to hide parts of Jerusalem, but also how Palestinian activists are using balloons and cameras to show what those parts are being hidden. And it's important for us to, okay, maybe some of the tools we have are not the best, but they're very workable. And they're still workable in this day and age. And so I really suggest that you pick up this book that's co-edited by Dina Matar, because I learned a lot. I reviewed it for the Marcos Review, and it really opened up my eyes about what's possible. Any other questions? Okay, I just want to say one anecdote, and then I'm going to draw the evening to a close. Yesterday, a Palestinian charity that has an arm that is supporting Gazan orphans had a fundraiser here. And I thought, the people here at the gallery, and myself included, we thought, oh, old codgers are going to come because those are the people with money. Well, the people who came here yesterday, they were like Lebanese tech bros. They were young women lawyers. They were women working on emerging economies. They were a young generation, and they were actively engaged, and they were curious. And they walked around the exhibition, and they were interested in buying posters for the Palestinian Red Crescent Society. They were interested in supporting the Gazan orphans. And these were networks within networks of people. And the young woman who organized it, she didn't know everybody. And I was buoyed up by this generation of people. Some of them are Middle Eastern, some of them are not Middle Eastern, but they all care. And I think that we're entering into a period now where people do care. And we've got to somehow rise to the occasion of this, whether it's sharing knowledge or looking at technology in new ways. And I think that on the occasion of this poster exhibition, that's what I'm hoping that is imparted to everybody. And thank you for coming. And I want to thank our guests. I want to thank Vera Tamari for joining us from Ramallah. Aline from Visualizing Palestine joining us, I think, from somewhere in the United States.
Virginia, yes.
Virginia. Well, you're in the eye of the storm in Virginia.
Yes.
Dina Matar from SOAS, and Nadine Aranki, who I have to say, it was Nadine's exhibition that I went to that really made me think that we have to do a poster exhibition. So she's my inspiration. And so please, everybody, read the Marcos Review and work. Thanks for coming.
Thank you, Malu.
Thank you.